A deadly plane crash just outside Fort Smith this morning leaves a community in shock. Lives have been lost, but we don't know yet how many. Officials scrambled to the town to find the plane and the people on it, and they're still there tonight. Good evening. I'm Megan Roberts. News of the crash reverberated across the territory. A Northwestern Air Lease plane went down near Fort Smith, killing some passengers. Juanita Taylor is CBC North's network reporter. She has been covering this developing story all day. She joins us now live from Rankin Inlet. Juanita, what can you tell us about this tragedy?
Well, Megan, it certainly has been a shocking day with the worst outcome. The Northwest Territories Chief Coroner has confirmed tonight that there are a number of deaths resulting from this crash, although Garth Eggenberger wouldn't say how many people have died until at least all of the next of kin have been notified. Now, this shocking announcement we just received in the past hour, Megan, it confirms what the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority alluded to in a public notice they sent out earlier this afternoon, that the Fort Smith Health Center activated its mass casualty protocol just before 9 o'clock this morning local time. Now, there are no details yet as to the exact number of casualties or survivors, nor do we have any information yet as to what happened to cause this tragedy. Now, the town of Fort Smith did post on its Facebook page around 9:20 this morning that they were responding to an aviation incident and telling residents to stay away from the area so that emergency personnel could do their job. And that included emergency services such as the RCMP, fire trucks, and the ambulance. A barricade was also set up near the airport, Megan, to prevent anyone not authorized to enter into that area and from getting through. And we also heard from the Joint Rescue Coordination Center in Trenton that they were assisting in this response. 2 Hercules airplanes, a Twin Otter, and the Canadian Rangers were initiated to help in this. And we learned that it was the Canadian Rangers who in fact found the crashed plane, and that it was found west of Fort Smith near Slave River. Now, search and rescue technicians equipped with survival and medical equipment then parachuted to the crash scene, and the Transportation Safety Board is now heading to the crash site to start its investigation.
And Juanita, we've learned through the Transportation Safety Board that this was a Northwestern airline plane as well.
That's right, Megan. A BAE Jetstream aircraft registered to Northwestern Air Lease. It's a 19-passenger pressurized turboprop aircraft. And according to its website, Northwestern Air Lease is a family-owned and operated business that started in 1965. It has over 70 employees, and it operates out of Fort Smith. It's offering daily scheduled and chartered flights for Northern Alberta and the Northwest Territories. And we don't know how many passengers were on that plane that crashed today, where it was coming from, or any other details. And just lastly, Megan, this is hitting the North really hard tonight, and that's why the Northwest Territories Health and Social Safety, or rather the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority, is coordinating mental health and counseling resources to the people in Fort Smith. Megan.
Thank you, Juanita. That's the CBC's Juanita Taylor reporting live for us from Rankin Inlet tonight. Now, the plane crash in Fort Smith has left people reeling, as you heard Juanita say. The magnitude of what has happened is still setting in. Carla Ulrich is in the community. She has been on the story from the moment it started. Carla, how are things in Fort Smith right now?
Well, it's an understandably somber day here in Fort Smith. News of the crash is just reverberated through town throughout the entire day, and then the news of the fatalities came, and it's just been one heartbreak after another. People going out to the mines, it's a part of the culture here, and it would be hard to find somebody that lives in the community that isn't affected by this. So it's been a really rough day in town.
And Carla, I understand you've been speaking to a family member of somebody who died on board. What can you tell us?
Yes, Crystal Benwell, she has confirmed to us that she did lose her brother Howie in the crash. Howie it would be hard pressed to find a person in the community who didn't love and, really cherish Howie. He had a great sense of humor. He was a local musician. He had a ton of friends. And it was really heartbreaking to hear that confirmed today. And the community is really pouring out online all of their love and respect for him and the family and best wishes. So.
Okay, I'm sure we'll continue to learn more. Carla, thank you so much for all of your work today. That's the CBC's Carla Ulrich live in Fort Smith tonight. Still some big question marks that we hope to learn more about, including just how many fatalities there were from the NWT coroner and, of course, the cause of this and also where the plane was going. These are some question marks that we still have. We did hear from the deputy mayor of Fort Smith tonight. She says the community is in shock. It's a close-knit community where everybody helps each other. She does say that the official coroner's report confirms, as we know, that there has been some deaths, some tragedy, and mental health support is being brought in, as you heard as well. And the town is expected to issue an official statement at that time. In the meantime, Fort Smith's deputy mayor encourages anyone to reach out to whoever they need, whatever support they need in this time of tragedy. We also heard from the Premier of the Northwest Territories, R.J. Simpson, who just issued a statement only moments ago. He is from the South Slave, from Hay River. He says that Northerners across the territory are expressing their condolences to the families and friends of those in today's plane crash. He joins those Northerners. He says he expresses his deepest condolences to those aboard the Northwestern air flight that crashed outside of Fort Smith. He says the impact of this incident is felt across the territory, and the people lost were not just passengers, they were neighbors, colleagues, friends, and loved ones, and their stories and contributions to the communities will not be forgotten. That is from the Northwest Territories Premier, R.J. Simpson. The Yukon government has ordered cabins built on placer claims near Little Atlin Lake be dismantled. One of those cabins was 2 stories tall. The Carcross-Tagish First Nation has long viewed the structures as illegal. Julian Gignac reports.
Danny Cresswell says the cabins flouted the law and trampled First Nations rights. He's with the First Nation. Cresswell says Tagish, Kwan, and Tlingit no longer go to the site, one he says his people used traditionally forever. But now that could change.
I wish my grandparents and my mom were alive, because they just loved it down there. They're smiling up there right now.
The claims the cabins were on date back to the late 90s. To keep the claims in good standing, a little mining work needs to be done every year, and you can't have a permanent cabin with a foundation on a placer claim. Richard Potvin is with the Department of Mines. He says site visits showed minimal evidence of mining work. He says now the laws are clear and must be followed.
The mining authorizations were not in existence at the time of the construction. So that is one element. The other element as well is that the cabin predates Carcross-Tagish First Nations final agreement.
Potvin says only the foundation remains. The claim holder declined comment. He has until June to finish clearing the site. Julian Gignac, CBC News, Whitehorse.
City of Whitehorse staff have a new plan for Copper Ridge. It was presented to Whitehorse City Council last night. If approved, more than 100 housing units would be built in the neighborhood, which is in line with the load-bearing capacity of the water and sewage infrastructure.
Planning efforts began in 2022 with background assessments, and it continued in 2023 with multiple iterations of information gathering, conceptualization, and engagement. Implementation of the plan area is expected to occur over the next few years, ending with the release of lots to the housing market, which is the responsibility of developers.
Yukoners could soon be able to comment on the proposed plan. Next week, Council will vote on whether there will be a public input session. Pungnuktu's arena has yet to open this winter. It uses real ice, and weather conditions have prevented it from freezing properly. The delay is putting a damper on the hockey season and interfering with practice opportunities for one high-level athlete. 12-year-old Jordan Malaya Macmur is playing hockey for Nunavut at the Arctic Winter Games, and she hasn't been able to practice. But her mom says the lack of ice isn't deterring her daughter.
So she does a lot of her practice outside our house, and on her own time she likes doing her own workout plans each and every day. And then they have school sports, hockey, but other sports have really helped keep her in shape.
Macmur is hoping the community will install artificial ice to avoid future delays and lengthen the season. CBC reached out to the hamlet for an interview but didn't receive a response before the deadline. Liberal cabinet ministers were hoping to address the political landscape south of the border today during the last day of their retreat. But that agenda was overshadowed when a federal court ruled that invoking the Emergencies Act during the 2022 convoy protests was unreasonable. Rafa Bujukanyan has the latest.
We've also talked a lot about the American elections coming up.
For Justin Trudeau, that focus especially key as he deals with the possibility of former U.S. President Donald Trump returning to the White House. The first Trump term was tumultuous, with conflict over NAFTA's renegotiation. He remains unpopular for most Canadians. For Trudeau's government, itself facing a beating in opinion polls, an opportunity to show he's looking out for his country's interests.
Obviously, Mr. Trump represents a certain amount of unpredictability, but we will make sure we're pulling together.
He's announced a team including ministers and his ambassador to the U.S. to defend Canada.
What is important to do is to focus on the issues, okay? So it is about, in our economical relationship with the United States, what are the policies and issues that make most sense to us?
The government was trying to show strength, but a court decision may well provide its opponents more ammunition. A federal judge ruled Trudeau's invocation of the Emergencies Act to quell the convoy protests in 2022 was unreasonable, saying it infringed on charter rights. The government pushing back immediately.
And after that consultation with the Prime Minister, with cabinet colleagues, we've taken the decision that we will be proceeding on an appeal, as is within our rights within the judicial system.
MPs will return to Parliament next week, where the Liberals, hoping to boast about their America strategy, will no doubt face questions about the Emergencies Act instead. The Conservatives already making hay of the court ruling, faulting their decision to invoke it. Rafi Bujukanyan, CBC News, Montreal.
Treaty in Cree is Naskomitoin, an oral agreement. And our agreements were always spoken. For George Spence, the core of treaty was Wichihioin, to help one another.
And so we, the commissioners...
He was there for the making of Treaty 9, where the Cree were told...
We will honor this agreement together, for as long as the sun shines and the waters flow.
The Cree made their mark because they were assured that the land would be shared, and they would always be able to harvest what they needed. George Spence was my great-grandfather. In his life, he saw many promises of the treaty go unfulfilled.
Treaties were essential to the creation of Canada. First Nations still fight for the agreements to be honored.
This is the CFPC's largest detachment, home to elite units, federal and municipal scope. Congratulations on making the cut.
Have you spoken with your father?
We're coming for you and everyone like you.
I would rather be broke than blue. Lots of reasons to not be a cop. And a Surrey girl should know all of them.
Maybe you should reconsider the uniform and everything that it represents.
I'd rather fight from inside it to make a change.
Why, hello.
It's me, Seth Rogen. 10 potters will be facing off in the most extraordinary ceramics competition show that this country has ever seen.
I'm Jen Robertson, and I'll be your host.
So are these potters ready?
This exploded.
To test their skills at the wheel and push themselves every week?
Oh,
no. So the ones that do stand out, they really do stand out.
And who will be named champion?
I'm excited to see it. Oh, wow!
Of the Great Canadian Pottery Throwdown.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A ration scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes. At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
It appears we have a mystery to solve.
You'll be next.
He's dead.
A murderer is murdered.
Toronto Constabulary, stop!
Here we go.
Make it mini!
I'm gonna push it. Let's go.
My hands are shaking.
This is all very overwhelming.
Don't expect anything normal.
I can't believe it. I'm here.
Last week's Devolution ceremony in Nunavut wasn't only a showcase of art and talent, but a sign that art can be created and shared at home. That's the message from at least one artist involved in the ceremony. The CBC's Emma Tranter has more.
It may have been a signing ceremony, but it was also a celebration of Inuit art and culture. Nicole Campog is an artist originally from Rankin Inlet. She upholstered 7 chairs with sealskin for the ceremony, which the signatories sat in when they signed the agreement. It took her almost 4 hours per chair, but the effort was worth it, she says, because it showed that art can be made at home.
You know, we don't have to outsource to the south. We can do everything here in Nunavut, and I think that is, I think that's something that everybody should know, that we make good quality items right here in Nunavut with the products that are kind of at our fingertips.
Campog was one of a long list of artists from each region of Nunavut who were part of the Devolution event last week. Everything about the day was curated, from the performance list to the stage, which was built by Samuel Kulugugtug, a young carpenter from Iqaluit. Kulugugtug says he only started crafting the items the week before.
And when you have the time and space to make these stuff and you have the equipment for it, it makes things go a lot faster.
Iqaluit's Nunata Sunakutangi Museum is looking for donations from the ceremony to add to its permanent collection. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A Winnipeg City Councillor is pushing to rename a new park in a local neighbourhood in honour of the city's Inuit community. The CBC's Jody Ningyotchak has that story.
More than 1,000 Inuit live in Winnipeg. That representation is prompting Winnipeg City Councillor Brian Mays to acknowledge the Inuit community by renaming a popular park, Tungasugit, which means welcome in Inuktitut.
I just thought, well, this is something I should do. We've done some street renamings and park renamings in the city of Winnipeg for our local Indigenous community and the Métis community, but I don't remember anyone doing anything to honor the Inuit community. So I thought, okay, let me get this process started.
May says he is hopeful the motion will be passed through the Riel Committee this Friday, in hopes the name can be changed this coming summer. Nikki Kumaksiutiksuk is the CEO for the Tungasugit Resource Center and has been living in Winnipeg for over 35 years. She says it's important Inuit are being included in partnerships with the city.
There hasn't really been a lot of information about who Inuit are, where we come from, our oral histories, our IQ values, so these are going to start helping society to learn and understand who we are as people, something as simple as naming a park Tungasugit.
Kumaksiutiksuk says they opened the Tungasugit Resource Center almost 5 years ago, and at the time, 48 Inuit accessed the center's resources. Today, there are over 600 active members. Jody Ningyotchak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The Yukon Quest is warning people about fake Facebook accounts. Executive Director Ben Smith says the accounts mirror the Quest's page and the posts look real. Smith says the fake accounts haven't caused a problem yet for the organization, but he's still wary.
Our biggest concern is that people will log on to sites or will give information that will compromise themselves, thinking that they're trusting the Yukon Quest and giving something that would benefit the race. They're really not. We're concerned that by logging into an account, by clicking on a link, someone will give away information that potentially could lose them money or compromise their identity some way.
Smith says the Quest is down to 20 mushers after a few teams withdrew. The race begins in Whitehorse on February 3rd. Canada Post is honoring North America's first Black female newspaper publisher. A new stamp featuring Maryann Shad Cary was unveiled today. She started a paper in Windsor, Ontario in 1853, and it was published in Toronto until 1860. Meg Roberts has that story.
I'd never heard of her before.
It was a trip to the museum in North Buxton, a community located outside Chatham, Ontario, known as one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad, that Adrienne Shad found out about her great-great-great-aunt, Maryann Shad Cary.
I was absolutely astounded.
Astounded at the magnitude of her ancestor's life. Born to a family of Delaware abolitionists in 1823, Maryann Shad Cary moved to what is now Windsor, Ontario, opening a school for the children of freedom seekers. Later, she would become the first Black woman in North America to publish and edit a newspaper, the Provincial Freeman.
She seemed fearless in her endeavors. She didn't seem to be afraid to criticize Black male leaders, white male leaders.
Going by her initials to not disclose her gender, she encouraged Black immigration to Canada through the publication, speaking candidly about slavery in the mid-1800s.
And she is certainly someone whose story needs to be better known. This is the only photo we have.
Family members like Irene Moore Davis know the impacts Shad Cary has had on the nation's history. Like many relatives, she's dedicated her career to telling it. And she's hoping with the help of Canada Post, more Canadians will get to learn it too. In honor of Black History Month, Canada Post has unveiled its newest stamp.
It means so much pride for our family.
The stamp was collaborated on by family members who gathered to see the final product in Chatham, Ontario, but also for a rare opportunity to reunite.
It's nice to see people and just enjoy the moment and celebrate the iconic Maryann Shad Cary.
Maryann Shad's family members celebrating the work she left behind, but it's with their help her legacy of activism and education lives on. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Chatham, Ontario.
A wheelchair-bound British man is planning to sit ski across the South Pole. Darren Edwards hopes to set a new world record and raise money for spinal cord injury research in the process.
The idea for the South Pole expedition really was born many years ago, reading stories of Shackleton and Captain Scott, and kind of that being a world that I wished one day I would explore and go to, but never really believing that it would happen. And then fast forward in life, I've had my accident. I've become someone who's known as having a disability and doing adventures.
Edwards plans to ski as many as 12 hours a day, pulling 80 kilograms of equipment with the help of 3 friends. He hopes to travel 333 kilometers over 20 days in December. The current sit-ski record is just under 111 kilometers. The team hopes to raise the equivalent of $500,000 from public donations. Edwards was paralyzed from the chest down in a rock climbing accident in 2016. What an incredible feat. We'll have to keep an eye on it in December to see how it all goes. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a look at the weather. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
What do I like? I like open fires, moonlit nights, chatty letters, rainy days. I like daydreaming. I love this colorful little island of ruby, emerald, and sapphire. Yet often my dark moods come. I'm possessed body and soul by this depression. They say women shouldn't write. Some days I almost give up. But I cannot contain my imagination. I made Anne real. I gave her my love of nature, my love of books, and my childhood dreams. My greatest happiness would be to climb the alpine path and write upon it a woman's humble name.
Lucy Maud Montgomery battled depression, rejection, and sexism to become known around the world for Anne of Green Gables and 19 other novels.
Closing this case gets you one step closer to you getting back on the squad and keeping you out of prison.
You're not a detective, you're a con artist. You have a driver's license, right?
Of course, I have 9. If you're gonna be a cop, what would you be?
Nothing. My dad raised me to be a cop. That's who I am. Stay here.
You're adorable.
You guys are making this entire station look like a circus.
He's busy trying to solve a murder. What are you doing?
Thanks for having my back.
Look at you.
Is this your girlfriend? This is not my girlfriend. She's way too cool to be your girlfriend. She's not way too cool to be my girlfriend.
Knock, knock!
Who's that?
He's fired!
I'm starting to think you don't know what a joke is.
You're gonna eat nothing but raw spleen.
Getting into peak physical shape is 50% training, 50% diet.
Never occurred to me to bring lawn chairs out here.
Never occurred to the Egyptians to build the pyramids until it did.
Oh! Simpler times.
Let's set you up with a lunch date.
You're deaf? I don't know sign.
This feels a little round.
If accessibility is wrong, we don't want to be right.
Spicy.
Oh, do tell.
Breaking news. The critics are talking.
Oh, this is it.
Imagine the Wonder Years if it were written by Gene Shepard.
They twisted it all up.
Well, you can't trust a newsman.
Highly recommended.
Onwards.
Onwards.
Heartwarming.
This doesn't mean I'm better than anyone here tonight. It just says it.
100% fresh.
Well, I suppose we don't need to get rid of the cable right this second.
Son of a critch.
You look like a cod gasping for air.
Name something you see people do on TV that you secretly could do better.
Host.
I knew that was funny.
Family Feud Canada. Watch free on CBC Gem.
We want you to know that you can ask us anything. Need help with your Riz?
You just made Riz uncool. There is something that's been bothering me. Are mutual funds or ETFs better for my long-term goals?
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then, the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home. But the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally. And that's when I first saw Wilf. And I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver, where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.